Hello and welcome back to my studio. I hope you're all well and feeling nice and creative, and I hope you're going to enjoy this demo of a fishing boat on the beach done in ink and watercolour. In other words, a line and wash that I'm going to show you and share with you today. But first, if you've ever wondered what Morgana gets up to on her Patreon page, this is her latest offering, these beautiful Canada geese over an abstract marshland. So follow the link below and join her Patreon if you want to create incredible scenes like this for yourself. So for today's demo, I use this photograph as inspiration, and you can see I've used my artistic license to reduce the colours to a limited palette because that's what I personally prefer. But if you prefer the local colour in the photograph, remember my demos are just to give you some ideas, maybe to inspire you and show you a few methods that you might want to try out. They're not intended to be sort of step-by-step tutorials. So if you want to try this method out, but using your own colours to create a beautiful sunset scene, then please feel free. I'll leave a link to the royalty-free photograph on Pixabay in the description below. So the first thing that I did was to sketch out the boat, the beach and the horizon line for the division between the sea and the sky onto my watercolour paper in pencil. Today I'm using Saunders Waterford cold press watercolour paper. It's taped to my board with ordinary decorator's masking tape, and my board will be at an angle of about 20 degrees. The pencil I used is an HB grade pencil, and I'm pressing lightly so I can erase any marks or lines that I'm not keen on. Once I'm happy with the drawing, I can go over it with fine liners. Any waterproof black fine liners will be perfect for this. And this really encourages one of the main foundational skills for any kind of painting, but especially watercolour landscape painting, even loose painting. And that is the skill of drawing, which of course everybody can learn. It can take a little while to get to grips with it because it's a different way of looking. It's learning to observe what you see in front of you in terms of line, shape, shadow, tone, that sort of thing. And it can be a bit difficult to start with, but if you're interested in learning to paint and progressing with painting, then it's well worth starting a sketching habit. And these kinds of paintings, line and wash paintings, are fantastic practice for looking and translating what you see simply onto the page. So that's the line work just about done. So just before the painting, a quick reminder that my book, Landscapes in Watercolour, Techniques and Tutorials for the Complete Beginner, is now available to purchase from all good bookstores. I'm leaving a couple of links in the description below. There are 10 step-by-step tutorials, and 5 of them are ink and watercolour or line and wash, so the same technique as this. So the first thing I'm going to do is to wet the paper all over with my large wash brush. I'm using a 1.5 inch Princeton Aqua Elite Mottler brush, and I'm using yellow ochre, burnt sienna, Payne's grey and sepia to create an atmospheric sky, trying to keep it lighter behind the boat. As I work down beyond the sky, I'm pulling some lighter dark tone, if you see what I mean, so light value Payne's grey and sepia across the sea area, and I've dipped now straight into some really rich, almost tube consistency sepia and burnt sienna with a bit of Payne's grey, and I'm just using the brush to produce some really strong dark values of paint across the foreground to create the beach. The idea here is to create a variety of sort of textural marks and tones very simply, using my palette knife to scrape through the paint in places and just to complement the line work that's already been done with the fine liners. So the idea here is to keep things incredibly simple, just putting in a little bit of paint here and there where I need it, not overdoing it, allowing the drawing to really shine through. Notice how adding really dark value Payne's grey around the base of the boat to create shadows helps that hull to really shine out. And of course I can put a little bit of sepia using a size 2 quill brush or any brush that you like for this sort of work to put a bit of tone, a bit of value on the right side of the boat where it's in shadow. I've lowered my board so it's flat on the desk so it can dry nice and evenly. Just before it dries, I'm taking my palette knife and going to just scrape a bit more texture, suggestions of stones, rocks, pebbles, sand, etc. on the beach. And then these marks will soften a little as they dry, but just add a bit more suggested detail to the foreground. It now needs to dry completely. And here's the dry painting. I've raised it back up to 20 degrees because that's my preferred angle to paint at. And I'm just going to add a few wet on dry details. I've mixed up a light value Payne's grey with a dab of sepia in it, and I'm using my size 2 quill brush to glaze over the sea area with a very pale glaze that will allow the underpainting to shine through. Do the same on the other side, working carefully, keeping it nice and flat and straight along the horizon line. Just deepening up the sea, but then allowing that paint to lighten out a bit on the left where where the water is catching some of the last light. Then just a bit of burnt sienna dry brushed over a couple of spots in the beach to brighten it up, deepen the shadows under the boat with more Payne's grey, and now I'm using a nice warm red vermilion, which is almost orange, to create this life ring on the side of the cabin of the boat. And I'm touching in a few spots of orange here and there around the boat. These pops of colour really help the eye to be drawn to it. And I shall be adding some white next. This is Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White ink. I've mixed a little bit of it up and I'm using my small calligraphy brush just to dot and dab a few highlights here and there around the boat, and you can see how these last finishing touches of the pops of colour and the pops of white against that dark background are really working beautifully to just add those finishing touches to the boat. You can use white gouache or white watercolour paint for this, or maybe even a white gel pen to create these highlights. And of course they'll be most effective where they contrast against a very dark background, and it's this contrast that's helping to make the boat look a little more finished. Just adding a few white highlights onto the beach, and I can just smudge those out if they're looking a bit much, or I can go over them with more paint if I don't like them. And now I'm going to remove the tape, and let's have a look at it and see how it looks. At the moment it's looking a bit bleached out because of the sun pouring into my studio windows, but once I've removed the tape I'll get a better photograph for you and show you how it's turned out and see if I need to do any more to it. And I've decided that I'm going to take my flat brush and that light glaze that I used of Payne's grey for the water and just add some shadows to the back of the cabin and the back of the hull of the boat. And here's the finished painting, and this is how the colours look in real life. So I hope you found it helpful and that there was something in this demo that will inspire you to have a go at something similar, or to take some of these techniques and methods and try them in your own work, in your own compositions, and really get creative with the use of colour and value. And of course, if you're interested in abstract landscapes and beautiful realistic birds to complement those landscapes, then follow the link to Morgana's Patreon page. So many thanks for watching. Please leave us a like if you enjoyed the video, and thank you so much to everybody that supports our work on our Patreon pages. We really do appreciate you, and we couldn't run this free to view YouTube channel without you. I'll see you again soon. Take care and happy painting. Bye.